Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's episode 2 for Fall 2019's X's and O's. Isaac Dedeson and Joe Thompson, happy to be here with you today. It's already week 4, ending tonight in the NFL season. We're going to open our show talking about that. We did not have a show last week. We had some technical difficulties. We did have some good discussion. Unfortunately, we were not able to get that out to you. So we're going to hope that we make it up for you as best we can here today. Very interesting Sunday of football and Thursday night as well in week 4. Let's at least first talk about that game in Chicago, Soldier Field. The Vikings took on the Bears, and it was a very, very ugly game of football yesterday.
Very ugly.
Let's just kind of go over some general, feelings about this game and what happened in this game. Well, it was a 16-6 Bears victory, and Mitch Trubisky of Chicago, their quarterback, was injured in the first series of the game. And
second play, pretty much.
And Chase Daniel came in. He's the Bears' backup, led them down to their only touchdown of the game, and it just proved to be enough.
Yeah.
The Bears got only 3 field goals after that. They won 16-6, very ugly game. Let's at least, kind of just talk about general reactions as we move on into week 5 for at least the Vikings side of this.
When I watched that game, it was just kind of just meh on both sides of the ball for the Vikings. Defense didn't do great. They didn't do terrible.
They still held the Bears to
16 points, and technically speaking, kept the Vikings offense in the game. But the real problem, I think, overall, was just that the Vikings offense could get nothing going. The running game was stone cold. The passing game couldn't get going either. It was just really overall just a bleh performance from the Vikings.
It just didn't feel like there was a plan B for the Vikings offense. Now, if you're aware, the Vikings are one of the best rushing teams, or they had the highest level of rushing success among most teams in the NFL so far. It was amazing to me that they thought that they could get away with that even against a slightly depleted Bears defense.
When you look at a basics, obviously the Bears are missing a couple key players, Roquan Smith and Akeem Hicks, but it's still the Bears defense. And even without their old defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, they're still extremely talented on that side of the ball, especially with regardless of just with Khalil Mack in general. I mean, any defense is going to be
help anybody
great,
out.
But just the backup for Roquan Smith, I think, is Kwiatkowski.
Nick
Kwiatkowski. He played really well. He blew up a couple big plays. I think he even forced a fumble during one of them.
I think so.
Yeah. He was
actually the one that started the second half. With
the strip
that
sack.
blitz. Yep.
And strip sack on Kirk Cousins.
Yep.
It was just kind of a rough game. Cousins he tried to make some throws. I think he seemed a little bit tentative in the pocket. I don't know if it's just kind of a lack of trust in his O-line still.
And I also just wonder, what the philosophy was in terms of passing calls in this game. What were the progressions? Mm-hmm. Because it seemed like for most of the game, whenever the Vikings did try to pass, it was short.
Yeah.
And when they did try to go deep, they couldn't connect all that often.
Yeah.
They did have that one deep pass to Diggs, but that's one.
Yeah.
You need to be able to connect on those deeper throws. And I wish I had Adam Thielen's quote after the game on standby. I really would have liked to have had that ready.
I think the shortest version that that I can remember is we have to be able to throw the ball. You can't be one-dimensional in this league. That's basically what it came down to. Even with Dalvin Cook being one of the best running backs in the game to start the season, you got to be able to pass the ball, and they just didn't do that.
And that's why I wondered so much, what was the end game here for this game? What were the Vikings actually, were they really thinking that they could run the ball against Chicago for 4 quarters and win? And not have another game plan in case. I mean, the offense finally started to move when they finally focused on, quick passes and quick reads. Mm-hmm. To, of all people, for the most part, Olabisi Johnson, one of the preseason standouts for the Vikings. They finally looked good in the fourth quarter. It was still a 2-score game, but it was only a 2-score game in number
too little,
value
too late
only.
Anyway.
Right, at that point in time when they finally got in the end zone, it was just so far into the game, so far deep into the game, couldn't really do much to erase the early struggles of that game. The Vikings also didn't help themselves out too many times. They couldn't get off the field on third down, even though they did hold for field goals. It just felt like a much, this game could have definitely been avoided.
Yeah, I think I do understand the frustrations on the offense, especially when it comes to Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, because they over the course of the first 4 games of the season, it's not like they haven't been getting open. They have. It's just some weird thing going on where progressions may be an issue, but whatever it is, just Kirk's just not hitting them, and I can understand their frustration.
And the thing is, if C.J. Ham is getting more targets than Diggs and Thielen combined, there is a serious
if you're not aware, C.J. Ham is the fullback on the Vikings.
He is a fullback, wears number 30 in your program, so that's bad. But hopefully, it's still early. Is one game against a good defense.
Yeah.
You can still take some positives out of this game. The defense is still playing well. There's a very winnable 4-game stretch upcoming for the Vikings where they can easily win at least 3 of those games, if not maybe all 4, although one of them is against the Philadelphia Eagles at US Bank Stadium, who just beat the Green Bay Packers on Thursday night and did so in pretty impressive fashion to me. So that will be something to look out for moving forward. Then let's kind of take another general look around the NFL. I know you wanted to talk about the growing legend of Gardner Minshew, quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yes,
so.
The man taking over for Nick Foles, the Super Bowl MVP for the Philadelphia Eagles, who got a big contract in the offseason. Gardner Minshew, I know it's only 2 weeks into his tenure as QB1, but so far he's been pretty impressive. I mean, he's got relatively good talent on at the receiving core. He also has Leonard Fournette, who had a fantastic game.
200. He went for
fantastic
225.
Game against the Broncos.
Yeah, and that always helps.
he's just pure swagger and just electric. It's just beautiful to watch.
In here and,
the play that I really enjoyed was seeing him escaping the pressure, bobbing and weaving in and around defenders, and then throwing a beautiful strike for a touchdown. That's something you can't coach. That's something as a quarterback that you have to be born with, and you have to have that presence of mind to escape the pocket, escape defenders, and then still accurately throw a nice pass.
How about him coming out of Washington State? These air raid quarterbacks are, this guy at least went kind of under the radar. But you'd think though, with the trend the NFL's going in, you might have maybe thought that a guy like Gardner Minshew would have been getting a little more attention. I don't know where he was drafted, but
I'm not even sure if he was drafted, to be honest.
At the same, that just proves my point. I'm kind of surprised. Yeah. He was in that system where you're throwing the ball a lot, and I'm surprised that those kind of guys aren't more sought after because that's the direction the NFL's trending in. I'm surprised that he kind of fell through the cracks of some of these teams. So good start for him. Leonard Fournette also popped out. Jaguars are 2-2 as they start to progress their way back up. How about the Cleveland Browns-Baltimore Ravens game? Another big surprise. The Cleveland Browns won. They've been very inconsistent so far this year.
But I think this game between the Ravens was a much smoother and cleaner game as far as play calling was going. They were hitting their receivers. Nick Chubb had a fantastic game. So did Jarvis Landry.
65, 3 touchdowns.
So did Jarvis Landry before he went down. Unfortunately, went down with a concussion. Hope he recovers and comes back as he's a talented receiver. And Baker, I thought he played well. He didn't have as many touchdown passes as I would like to see, but 340 yards passing was another just overall pretty good game. Pretty good bounce-back game after a bit of a struggle to start the season. And I think when you look at the Ravens, they had a good start. I'm a big fan of Lamar Jackson, but you got to go back to who they played. Okay. Dolphins.
Well,
and who was their week 2 opponent? Who was their week 2 opponent? It was another pretty meh team.
It escapes me, nonetheless. But
he's played some relatively weak opponents besides the Chiefs and the Browns. So now that the Ravens are starting to get more into their division, I think it's going to be a little bit more of a struggle for them. But I'm confident. I like Lamar Jackson. I hope he plays well.
Anything else we want to touch on here in the NFL that happened this last weekend?
I would like to talk a little bit about the Washington Redskins. Okay. I think. Just seeing the fact that
their team is in disarray.
I think one of the biggest differences between the Redskins and the Dolphins, they're both 0-4. The Redskins aren't supposed to be this bad. They're supposed to be pretty mediocre, I feel, but they're not supposed to be this bad. But Case Keenum, talk about a fall from grace. He has had a couple really bad stretches of games to the point where he got benched in this game. And then Dwayne Haskins comes in and makes his debut, and unfortunately, he threw 3 picks. Not a great first start for him. And now it comes to the big question. The Redskins play the Patriots this upcoming week. Who do you start at quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, well, it really depends on the direction they want to go
I think it would be really unfair to throw Dwayne Haskins to the dogs like that and the top dog in the Patriots. But I also don't think putting in Case Keenum is the best decision either. So they got some decisions to make up in Washington, D.C.
That'll be something to look out for. In Landover, Maryland, if I may add. Not many people may.
That's true.
Yes, Landover, Maryland is the official home of the Washington Redskins. Real quick, the Chiefs and Lions game yesterday, that was really fun. The Lions almost made it to October undefeated.
Yeah.
They lose on a last-second run, 1-yard touchdown. The Chiefs had 3 1-yard touchdowns, none for Patrick Mahomes. Of course, that makes you very salty as a Patrick Mahomes fantasy owner.
Yeah.
Apologies.
I'm still winning, though.
The Chiefs are 4-0, and the biggest probably surprise of yesterday, fully biggest surprise, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 55 points on the L.A. Rams. Good games for Tampa for Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and Ndamukong Suh got a revenge game touchdown to ice the game.
Really?
Yes, he did. He got a long fumble return for a touchdown. It was a good game, probably, if you don't look at, the context for Jared Goff. He had 512 yards, but he had to throw the ball 68 times.
And
to get there. He threw 3 picks. They didn't run the ball at all, so that was another huge surprise from the NFL's Week 4. When we come back, we are done talking about football today. We're going to be discussing the MLB playoffs, as those will start up tomorrow night. The American League and National League will both cover those for you when we come back.
The TLMC offers a variety of services for NDSU students and instructors. Class project support is one of the key ways in which the TLMC serves faculty. Technology-intensive projects can provide students with an opportunity for creative expression, enhanced communication, and the development of digital media literacy skills that will benefit them in class, college, and beyond. We realize that there are obstacles and challenges to assigning technology-rich projects, and the TLMC is here to help by serving as a bridge between instructors, students, and the technology. We can help with project planning, identifying student learning and support needs, and developing, coordinating, and delivering project-specific support. Our services include hands-on workshops for your students, scheduled during or outside of class time. Individual and group assistance is always available for students on a walk-in basis at the TLMC lab. With access to a variety of multimedia software and hardware, students can store and work on their audio-video projects over time. Workstations may be reserved or used on a walk-in basis. Other learning resources include project-specific learning links on the TLMC website, our learning resource library, and a lynda.com learning kiosk. The TLMC Media Studio features space and equipment for video recording, studio photography, audio recording, and screen capture. Students, faculty, and staff can make appointments to use the studio and to get help in producing, editing, and publishing their media works. Additional studio resources are also available at Berry Hall. Please contact us if you would like to take a tour of our facilities or visit with us about a project that you have in mind.
Welcome back to episode 2 of X's and O's. This is the segment where we talk about playoff baseball. The regular season just wrapped up yesterday, and so that means the AL and NL wildcard games will start up this week. And before we get into the teams, let's discuss who we're going to be talking about first. Wait a minute, I hear some music.
What is that? Is it somebody's birthday today?
Oh, shoot.
Oh my goodness.
How about that?
Happy birthday to Isaac. He turns 22 years old today.
Yeah.
Nice strapping young man. Happy birthday, bud.
What was that? What did you just say?
He called you a nice strapping young man.
What does that mean?
It's a compliment. Just take it.
Huh? What am I strapping?
I'm saying you look handsome.
That's like a term from the 20s. I don't appreciate that.
Wow. All right.
I don't know what that means.
Well, let's just move on then. Let's
I'm
just
too
get into
simple for that.
let's get
Okay,
into
then.
let's get into the playoffs. That was
So-
that was. I thought I was trying to be nice, and then
Well,
you just made it really awkward.
know.
All right.
All right.
You should have just taken the compliment, man.
I didn't know what you meant, man.
How about just go to the American leagues? Tell me
Yeah,
what's going
so
on.
I had that. So I'm going to talk about the American League. The Houston Astros were the best team in Major League Baseball this year. They finished with 107 wins, the most in their franchise's history, and this is their third straight playoff appearance after winning the World Series a couple years ago, made the championship series last year. They were the best hitting team in baseball. They had the highest OPS in baseball. They had the most strikeouts of any team in the majors. This team is stacked. Full-on stacked. Jose Altuve, Carlos Correa, Alex Bregman, MVP candidate potentially, Michael Brantley, Yordan Alvarez, potential Rookie of the Year in the American League. This team has it all. Not to mention, this team also has really, really good pitchers on this team. 2 20-game winners, Justin Verlander and Garrett Cole. And oh, by the way, they also traded for Zach Greinke from the Arizona Diamondbacks. That look says it all.
Yep.
That's why I was glad the Minnesota Twins do not have to play this team in the first round of the playoffs.
I agree.
So it would make a lot of sense for people to think that this Houston team should be World Series favorites. Sometimes it isn't always that easy. So
Yeah.
I would
World Series or bust for them.
I would probably proceed with still cautious optimism for the Astros. There are plenty of other teams. There are still a couple other teams in here that can probably knock them out if given the chance. One of those, the New York Yankees, they won 103 games this year. They were fourth in the majors in team batting average, second in home runs at 306. And the biggest thing, though, that sticks out at me for the Yankees, though, while the home runs are nice, they were 14th in the majors this year in team ERA, and that's the second worst among all playoff teams. When you take into account all 10 of the playoff teams, the Yankees had the second worst of all of them, so that's a little discouraging, but the hitting core speaks for itself with guys like Gleyber Torres, Luke Voit, DJ LeMahieu, Aaron Judge, of course.
They just got Giancarlo back.
Right. This team was ravaged with injuries.
And they still won. And still kept winning.
And Giovanni Urshela became a household name as well for the Yankees, so their hitting core is not to be messed with. They did lose Domingo Germán, though. Their top pitcher during the season, he did a bad thing, and he got suspended. So he's not available for them. The Yankees feature more left-handed pitchers than right-handers in their starting rotation. I think their most prominent right-hander that I know of is Masahiro Tanaka, but otherwise they got plenty of left-handed pitching. For the Minnesota Twins, their opponent to potentially bash on, the Twins won 101 games this year. They had the second highest team batting average in the majors and officially hold the new Major League record for home runs hit in a season with 307, just one above the New York Yankees this year.
Just got my Bumba Squad shirt the other day.
Good for you. That's a good idea. The Twins actually, for all the struggles they've had publicized this year for their pitching, they still finish as an entire team with a top 10 ERA this year at 4.18. Not bad, really.
The bullpen is better than people say it is.
The bullpen's gotten better.
It's better. It's still not great, but it's better than it was.
And it was definitely a big point of discussion among Twins fans. Upgrade the bullpen. They kind of did, and they kind of didn't at the same time. If you want to read more into that story, if you aren't aware, feel free to Google that for yourself. We won't discuss that here. The power, though, is going to be the focus for the Twins in their series against the Yankees. Nelson Cruz, Max Kepler, Miguel Sano, Eddie Rosario, Mitch Garver all hit 30 home runs. The first ever team to have 5 30 home run hitters.
And real quick about Mitch Garver, he wasn't even an everyday starter.
Exactly.
And he was hitting 30 home runs. That's insane.
Thing about also with the Houston Astros, if I may go back, Yordan Alvarez, he played about the same amount of games as Mitch Garver, and he had 27 home runs. So if he had played more games, the Astros would have joined the Twins as the only teams to have 5 30 home run hitters. I don't think there's any doubt about that. The Twins, though, rotation, that's their most suspect aspect. They still can't outslug anybody if given the opportunity. In the wild card game, it's the Oakland A's and the Tampa Bay Rays. Couple 96-plus win teams. The A's finished with 97. They actually had the lowest team batting average among AL playoff teams at only 249. They finished fifth in the majors in home runs. This still is a pretty well-rounded team in terms of hitting. Still a little iffy on their pitchers at this point. I think Liam Hendriks is probably the biggest standout, amazingly, given what his Twins career used to be before going over to Oakland. But this A's team has a lot of good hitters. Marcus Semien, Matt Chapman, Matt Olson can't be slept on. And the Tampa Bay Rays, real quick, they have just a lot of good, solid hitters. I don't think they really have anybody truly elite, maybe, other than Austin Meadows. And their pitching, it's good. They're still kind of rebounding a little bit from some injuries in the regular season. Charlie Morton's their biggest standout from this year. He'll pitch in the wild card game. That'll be this week. That'll be at the Coliseum. That should be good. That should be good TV for that Oakland-Tampa Bay wild card game.
Absolutely. And now moving ahead on to the National League, I'm going to start with the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Astros are the top dog in the American League in terms of talent on the roster. Dodgers are in the same boat with them. Loaded, absolutely loaded on every single aspect of the team. Elite starting to pitching led by the soon-to-be Hall of Famer Clayton Kershaw and Hyun-Jin Ryu.
I don't think it's too boastful to say Kershaw.
Talented infield and outfield, potential NL MVP candidate in Cody Bellinger, Justin Turner, Corey Seager, Chris Taylor. Just the list goes on and on. The bullpen is not as good as it has been in the past, but it's still relatively good. Kenley Jansen's still an elite closer, but I do not trust them at all. I have a really good feeling that they've been to the last two World Series and they lost both times. 7 games in the Astros in 2017, 5 games to the Red Sox last year. I don't.
Are they due for further regression?
I think they're due for even further regression. Okay. I think in terms of NHL teams, they're going to pull the Tampa Bay Lightning this postseason. Moving ahead on to the winners of the AL East, the Atlanta Braves. Not as much talent on the pitching side of things as the Dodgers, but on the offensive side of things, they are loaded. They have a talented offensive roster led by Freddie Freeman and Ronald Acuna Jr.
Ozzie Albies, two big-time hitters on that team.
Like I said, I'm not too crazy about their pitching, but it has improved as the season's gone on, I believe. They should make some noise this year. Last year, there was kind of a feeling things out kind of playoff series against the Dodgers. Acuna did have that grand slam, which is pretty cool, but that was about their only highlight in the playoffs last year. But I think they should make some noise this year. Rounding out
they got Dallas Keuchel, by the way. True. Keep that in mind. Dallas Keuchel, former Houston Astro,
former Cy Young winner too.
Yes, and so he has got that experience at least in his back pocket.
Oh, I forgot to mention Josh Donaldson. He has had a nice career rebound with the Braves after a couple last shaky stint with Toronto and a brief stint with the Cleveland Indians that didn't pan out too well.
That almost doesn't count.
But was on the team for a little bit, so
it almost doesn't count though.
But still, anyway, rounding out the division winners, the St. Louis Cardinals, in my opinion, the weakest of the division winners, but that doesn't mean they're not talented. They still got loads of veterans on this team.
I think they can take the Braves.
Yadier Molina. I mean, sure, everybody's got a chance. It's the playoffs, but Yadier Molina, Adam Wainwright, Paul Goldschmidt, and just
Jack Flaherty went from having like a near 5 ERA to a sub 3 ERA in like 2 months.
Marcelo Zuna. It's just loads of relatively older guys, but they're still obviously talented. They're still producing at a high level. We'll have to see what happens when the actual games are played, but on paper, I see the Cardinals as a bit of a weaker in terms of the division.
I like Atlanta's roster a lot, but St. Louis looks really good to me.
Yeah.
They're a dark horse team. They're at least dark. I got a dark horse shot at them of beating Atlanta in the NLDS.
Absolutely. We'll have to see what happens. But going into the wild card teams, we have the Washington Nationals. Obviously, the Nationals were talented with Bryce Harper, and they're obviously still talented with Bryce Harper, but I wasn't sure how losing the face of your franchise was going to pan out for them. But it paid off extremely well.
I thought they were going to make the playoffs just fine.
But anyway, I mean,
not in the way they did, probably.
Not in the way they did, absolutely. But Anthony Rendon, he's another NL MVP candidate. He's been fantastic.
He was probably the biggest replacement for Bryce Harper in that lineup.
And speaking of replacement for Bryce Harper, how about Juan Soto? I mean, that dude is a stud.
He took a really big step this year.
Still have really good starting pitchers. Still got Strasburg. Still got Max Scherzer. Patrick Corbin. Bullpen, I think, is still a little bit suspect because that's been their biggest flaw overall as a team the last few years.
But I'm not sure how that's all panned out.
And they've tried that in the past too, but it could be interesting. We'll have to see what happens in the wild card game because they are going against the hottest team in the National League right now, the Milwaukee Brewers. Milwaukee
Who would've
Brewers
thought?
ended September smoking hot,
Last time we
most of their games.
The last time we released a show to you guys, right? Like they
Yeah.
were way out.
They were out.
way
They were on the
behind
outside looking in.
The Chicago Cubs, and then all of a sudden, the Chicago Cubs lose.
They
6
fell
in
off
a
a
row.
cliff, and then
And
the Brewers, they just
That's
went on an
insane.
insane winning streak
Yeah.
while losing Christian Yelich,
Right.
their best player.
Foul the ball off his kneecap.
Yeah,
That's not
and-
supposed to happen. You lose your leader like that, you just win a lot.
Christian Yelich,
usually
he missed the
supposed to
last
happen.
month of the season pretty much, and he still has a shot at MVP. And they still have loads of talent, though. Mike Moustakas, Lorenzo Cain, Eric Thames. I mean, Brandon Woodruff, and Josh Hader. There's still
Hader's
some
a
big...
little volatile. He's like a
Yes.
volcano to me. You know, he can be hot at times,
Yeah.
but sometimes he'll just blow up.
Obviously,
And
it's
really-
not the same as it was
yeah.
last year, where he was virtually unhittable, but he's
Yeah.
still crazy talented. There's still some big questions with this team, but I think they can make some noise in this wild card game and maybe challenge some of the other teams in this round of playoffs.
That's very fair. So while we have a little bit more time, let's just kind of spitball a little bit. You know, who might win these wild card games officially? Let's at least get some predictions down. Who might win these wild card games in our opinions, and maybe throw out a dark horse or maybe just an early World Series contender. Of course, as this goes on, we'll be talking more about this as everything happens. So who do you think might win this Oakland-Tampa game here in the American League?
I think overall, I think the Rays have a little bit more talent, so I think they pull it out. But if the A's win, that's going to be a huge problem for the Astros because the Oakland Athletics are the Astros' kryptonite. So that could be a huge problem if the A's win that wild card game. But I think the Rays pull it out because I think they're just overall more
regular
talented.
Season against the best in the American League. I kind of agree. Although Tampa, probably them being on the road, they kind of fly under the radar. So maybe they pull it out. Again, like I said earlier, Tampa just has a lot of really good, solid hitters. Travis d'Arnaud really turned it around this season for Tampa, and they still have Kevin Kiermaier, not that great of a hitter anymore. Ji-Man Choi had some huge hits down the stretch for Tampa, and Tyler Glasnow, is available probably out of the bullpen still in that game in particular, but probably they wouldn't hold a candle too much to Houston if I had to at least make a prediction. So Oakland would probably match up better against Houston, but I might consider Tampa to maybe win that game.
Yeah.
Then in the National League, Milwaukee, Washington.
I got to go with the Nationals based on now that we've had a couple days of rest before the playoff games actually start. I think that could be a disadvantage to the Brewers because they came out smoking hot, and when they get a couple days off, it can mess with the vibe a little bit. So, and overall, I think the Nationals just have a little bit more talent in terms of roster than the Brewers, so I think the Nationals take this one.
They didn't play Lorenzo Cain, Ryan Braun, or Eric Thames, I think, or something like that in their last game. So I think I even saw some Brewers fans, kind of disappointed that they weren't doing that. But
because they still had a shot at the division towards the end of the season.
Right, but resting them, you already got a spot. It kind of does make sense that you're at least available. But anyway, real quick, World Series favorites. That's hard at this point. But Houston seems like a good pick, a safe pick. But I just don't know. I honestly don't know. The American League is probably I don't know. I can't really even say better battle tested because of the bottom half of the American League being so bad. But I don't even want to pick the Dodgers either. I don't know. I might just have to take a rain check on this one, to be completely honest.
Braves, Astros.
Okay.
And then Astros winning in 6.
I can kind of see that.
I'm just throwing it out there. There's no real reason behind it. I just, for the sake of having a prediction, I don't care if I'm wrong or not. It would be cool if I'm right.
I don't even care if I'm wrong, but I just don't want to make one.
It'll be cool if I'm right, but overall, just a prediction.
Sure enough, so I guess you can maybe die on that hill potentially.
I'm willing to die on it.
Cool. All right, so that does it for episode number 2 of Fall 2019 X's and O's. We thank you for watching, and we will see you next week, hopefully, barring any other technical difficulties, for episode 3. We'll see you next time.